City of Palm Coast City Council meeting concerning the city manager interviews. Today's Thursday, November 13th, 2025. It's 1 p.m. Correction, it's 1:30 p.m. I'm reading my script and it's wrong. We're in the John Netz Community Wing of City Hall. If you could please silence all devices if you have any, and stand with, I call this meeting to order. We'll stand for a short, the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence, and then we'll get on with it. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Ms. Cook, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Norris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Pontieri.
Present.
Councilmember Gambaro.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, ma'am. And do we have an introduction from staff?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Ashley Fenner, Human Resources Coordinator. Today, you are here to meet and conduct public interviews with our 2 city manager finalists. Just to recap, each candidate has prepared a 10-minute presentation. This will expand on their first-year vision as city manager and to identify the challenges and opportunities they anticipate if they're selected. Also, at the October 14th workshop, Council decided each council member would prepare to ask 2 questions during the public interview. Following the presentation, Council will have just over an hour to ask the candidates their interview questions. I'll let you know when there's 10 minutes remaining to the meeting, just so we kind of stay on track. I'll just kind of put my hand up, that way you guys are aware. Kind of it. Does anybody have any questions before we get started?
No, we got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Awesome. The first presentation will be from Mr. David Fraser, who's from Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Okay. Come on up, Mr. Fraser. Thank you so much for participating in the job search. And we really appreciate you flying in to do this interview. And I hope you had a good experience this morning with the staff and the other council members. You can take a couple of minutes to describe yourself if you like, and then get into your presentation, or you can go right on into it if you like.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate the time, and it has been a good morning. I assume I'm all on and the volume's decent. Thank you. I will take a moment of personal privilege, if you don't mind. My name's David Fraser. Just for the public's benefit, I know the council is all familiar with my background, but just for the public's benefit, I'm 4-time city manager, 1-time county manager, and 2 times the executive director of a state municipal league. So if you don't know what a state municipal league is, you're in good company. You can ask me later, or ask any of these guys. I do have, I always like to make HR squirm a little bit at the beginning of these things. I'm going to tell you some things you're not allowed to ask. I am married. Got 4 kids. We're recently empty nesters. So we actually have 4 grandkids now. Having said that, I actually kind of got an early start on life. Not only married young and started having kids young, but started my career young. So one of the things I like to point out is that, and I may have on the video interview, that my resume makes me look a little older than I am. But I guess that's better, I guess that's not such a bad thing. So at any rate, it's a pleasure to be here. I will mention one other thing, and that is that, of course, as you know from looking at the resume, my career has taken us all over the country. And my wife, who sends her regrets for not having been able to be here, she's a teacher and couldn't get out of some mandatory training, if you can believe that. She sends her regards, but she did give me strict instructions that I was not to return home without the job. So even though she's not here, she is a big presence here, believe me. Any questions, Mayor, or anybody else, before I start talking about the first year?
No, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay. The request, of course, again, for the public's benefit, Each of us were asked to submit a brief paper talking about what our vision is for the first year as city manager. As I mentioned my experience earlier, you know that I've done this first year thing a couple of times. And so I not only, you know, have expectations for what that'll look like, but, you know, I've had a few test runs at it, and I know how really important it is. Again, and you asked it to be a 10-minute presentation. I'm going to stick to the 10 minutes. In order to do that, I'm not going to review the white paper, but I will review it quickly. I won't go through it, I should say. In the white paper, I talked about setting a foundation of trust and purpose as the first and most important thing, and establishing its strategic clarity and organizational alignment. In other words, as I mentioned to a couple of you this morning, knowing what our goals are and keeping our eyes on the ball with that, making sure that as we're being dragged in various directions by the demands of our duties, that we make sure we're prioritizing the things we know to be most important so we accomplish those things. Third, to strengthen operational excellence and fiscal stewardship. Again, just briefly for the benefit of the audience here. You know, that means having accountability and openness. That means minding our resources. You know, the city's mission is not to make money, but the city can't fulfill its mission without those resources. They are limited resources, and they ought to be, because we ought to give the taxpayers as much value for their dollar as we can, and so that's why fiscal stewardship is important, and making sure that we're using those dollars properly and efficiently. This one is no surprise to anybody that's sitting in this room or watching by another method. Infrastructure and managing growth is a big deal in Palm Coast right now. Growing is healthy. A growing city is healthy. When you think it's painful this way, try moving the other direction and shrinking, and that has discomforts. But with that, you need to stay ready for that growth. The growth is going to come here. The residential growth is just going to come here as it has for the foreseeable future. But our minds need to be looking forward to make sure that we're diversifying in other ways, seeking economic, you know, retail, industrial, economic development as well, so that when things do slow down, which inevitably they will, maybe not on our watch, but we need to make sure that we're setting the table well for those who follow us. When they inevitably slow down, then we'll be prepared for that. Culture is a big thing that I've addressed my whole career. It's interesting. I've done a lot of study. Something interesting just happened. Are we still okay? Okay. We've done Can you guys hear now? Were you aced out a minute ago? I'll start at the beginning then. Just kidding. You know, government culture, a lot of times we complain about government culture, but one of the things that's true about the bureaucracy, which has kind of become a dirty word, but one of the things that's true about it is that it doesn't have all the right incentives. I think as government bureaucrats, sometimes we tend to get comfortable in saying no. That seems to be the safe answer. But you know, I think we should be in the business of getting to yes. Walt Disney, one of my favorite things that he ever said is the answer can always be yes. Sometimes it's yes if. So sometimes we have to get outside the box a little bit and think about what it takes to get to yes, so we can move forward effectively as a community, as an organization, as a community. Of course, transparency, communication, and community engagement is very important. One thing that you all should know, whether you're on this side of me or this side of me, one thing you should all know is that if I'm selected for the position, you'll get to know me. I'll be out, you know, in the community, and you'll see me at events, and I want to get to know you. And so, please, if you see me out in public, please introduce yourself. Don't feel that you can't bother me, please introduce yourself. And then I kind of covered this one already, so I'll just conclude with integrity, service, and results at the bottom. What I want to spend a minute on and that was just a review. I want to spend a minute on what the first 30 days. I didn't ask that question. You asked what the first year looks like, but I got to tell you, the first 30 days. And one of the things that I learned early in my career, that everybody that the last manager said no to, you in your first 30 days. Hope you get a different answer. And so, for that reason, as well as just being prepared to advise the council properly, being able to make the decisions, because there's not a grace period. It's not a period of time where you can say, well, for the first 90 days, I'm not making any decisions or making any commitments. That just doesn't work. So it's really important that I come up to speed like yesterday. So to that end, kind of what my first 30 days usually look like, let me tell you what my first day will look like. And that is that, I'll want to meet with each of you as soon as possible before I even arrive. I'll ask, see if they can schedule you in so we can, we had kind of a get-to-know-you visit this morning. Today we're going to kind of, dig into me. And I need to, the minute I get in the door, I need to begin to hear from you, what's important in the community, what's going on. I will, in the first couple of hours, convene the department heads. So they're, I think, in a different meeting, and with one exception, not hearing this. But whatever my first day is, there will be a department head meeting that day. And, where I'll kind of let them know a little bit about me, but that I'll also, one of the things that I will do is in the first week and a half, depending on how long that takes to get scheduled, I'll ask each of the department heads to take me on a tour of their department and of the city. And that way I'll get to know their people, I'll get to know their functions, what they're doing, I'll get to hear what they're, what's on the front burner in their department, some of the longer term things they're working on. And as we tour the city, we'll drive past a lot of the same things, but I'll be hearing different perspectives on that. And so I'll not only be able to start to put those perspectives together, but I'll hear themes. So I'll be able to know what's important kind of across the organization, so I'll hear those themes. I'll ask you if you're willing to, and again, you're my boss, so I can't tell you, but I'll ask you if you're willing to do the same with me. Take me and show me the community from your perspective. Talk to me about what is going on in the community, what should be going on in the community, what would be better if it wasn't going on in the community. And that's interesting on that note. I often, when I visit with businesses, I always, of course, ask what the city can do to help them. But I also ask, what can the city stop doing that would be helpful? And so, kind of the same thing with you guys. I have already begun to read all the documents I can get my hands on. So before I show up to work, I will have, I've already been through the budget and much of the comprehensive plan. Before I even show up to work, I will have ingested all those kind of documents that I can get my hands on. Because again, when I get here, whether I think I've got a grace period or not, I don't. And for the first council meeting, I might get away with, I don't know. But you're going to need me to be able to be helpful as soon as possible. And frankly, if I'm not up to speed, I give myself an opportunity to step into some things that I wish I didn't step into. So, not that I'll be immune from that. That's part of the gig, right? For me and for you. Sometimes we don't see a landmine before we step on it, but if we could have and failed to prepare for that, that's on us. So again, I just want you to know that the first month, it's always long days in this job, but I'll pretty much live at City Hall for the first month. I think I'm about, I don't know what that was. Is that me? I think that's probably about 10 minutes. So I'm going to hold up there and ask if there are any questions on that or how you'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we'll go with the 2 questions each. We'll go one question each council member, and then we'll come back and do it over again. So we started this end last time. We'll start this end with Councilman Gambaro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fraser, just personally, and I'm sure that my fellow council members will express their same thanks, but thank you for volunteering to join our team and serve, our residents for the city of Palm Coast. And it's a tall order, it's a tall task, and thank you for willing to step up and lead. I was looking at your resume, and as this council tries to grapple with how we can best improve our economic development, I saw here down under notable highlights, it says acquired funding for projects including state brownfield redevelopment, EPA funds for a variety of different things. Could you expand on that and maybe share with our residents what that means and how that could apply for economic development initiatives that we have here in the city?
Yeah. So, quick brief definition, the brownfield grants, brownfields grants are made for they're grants designed for revitalizing the areas that, it isn't for new vacant property where you're trying to do something, it's when you're trying to redevelop something. When I took the job in Buchanan, Michigan as the city manager, Clark Equipment, I don't know if any of you remember Clark Equipment, it's now Ingersoll Rand, but Clark Equipment was one of the biggest equipment manufacturers in the country and the world for that matter. Within a year of prior to me taking that job, well, let me back up. Clark Equipment was headquartered in Buchanan. They employed 5,000 at their various plants there. And when I took the job there, they had just left town. They'd sold to Ingersoll Rand, who had moved them to North Carolina to a more business-friendly climate, and left a gaping hole in the local economy. Now, of course, 5,000 jobs leaving town is bad news. What was even worse news, when they left, they sold the city all of their properties, which was several plants, sold the city all of their properties for $1. Of course, the city, I think thought it was a great deal until they realized what it takes to remediate a former industrial site. And so they were looking at dollars they couldn't even imagine coming up with to just do the much less redevelop, just to remediate environmental issues on the property. So that's when I went to work. That was the first time I went to work and got a brownfield, some brownfield grants to clean that property up. We actually had some EPA super funds as part of that site, and if any of you work with EPA, that means it was a really big deal, a really expensive deal. And so we were able to take the short version of all that, and there's certainly a lot of war stories in there. I do have a buddy, by the way, who said you can't tell war stories unless you've been to war. But there are a lot of stories in there, but the bottom line is at the end we were able to completely remediate it environmentally, and then we were able to bring in several new companies, and so we had companies and we were able to fill that site with several new companies that each, and replace those a like amount of jobs, but over companies that employed hundreds instead of thousands. And so, it would help diversify that portfolio a little bit. So it was not only a means of getting, out of a sticky environmental situation and recovering from a devastating blow of a company leaving town, but actually ended up being in a better position where the economy was a little more diverse, able to withstand,
Well, thank you, sir. We didn't talk about it this morning, and certainly I didn't know the background on this, but when I read your resume, I saw this as a way to understand problem solving and how you reached out to tackle a problem within the community without necessarily relying on the taxpayers to fix it. And so as we look for economic development or even our infrastructure projects, we're always looking for new ways and new ideas on how to bring in funding to help our residents in this regard. So thank you very much.
Relatedly, if I may, one of the best speeches by a public official I ever heard was at the National League of Cities, and a councilman was talking about how much time we spend trying to figure out whose fault something is. And the real question is, whose problem is this? And this is a good example of that. In this case, that wasn't my fault. Didn't have anything to do with creating that problem, but it was certainly my problem to deal with. And so I think it's healthy if you look at it that way. And here we are. What do we do now? How do we, sorry, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Sullivan.
Great. David, thank you very much. And enjoyed speaking with you this morning. And thank you for taking on this challenge, a new challenge in your life. You've had a lot of them based on your resume. I've got kind of a trick question, a little different than probably what other people are going to ask, and that's this. Philosophically, we can all look at government as parasitic. We have to take things from the citizens in order for us to fulfill our jobs. Whereas if you bring a company into a town, somebody takes some parts, put them together, and at the end of the process, they've created wealth. They've created value. So when we think about the government, is it possible for the government to actually create value from taking value away from the citizens? And I think it's a problem that goes on all the time, and is the basis for a lot of the problems that sometimes we face in government is we have to understand the process that we're in. And I know that's just philosophical, but any thoughts along those lines?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. There's a lot to unravel in there, but one of the first things is, you talk about government taking, and of course, that can lead to a whole legal discussion, but if you get back from that philosophically, the government in our country is the people, and they've elected you guys to represent them, because it's not really feasible to have all 100,000 of them show up every Tuesday and make decisions, and so we have this representative democracy. But again, the power, as you know, and you know every election day for sure, power is with the people that sent you here to do their job. So I know you all, having visited with each of you, I know you all take that very seriously. And can we create value? Yes, absolutely you have to. One of the things that, one of the reasons we have government is because, public safety and all that kind of stuff, but really our role is to do some of the enterprises that need to be done that the private sector can't or won't do. So, for example, public parks that people can go to for free. It's hard to monetize that if you're a business. Now, Walt Disney might disagree with me on that, but speaking just of the local playground, it's hard to monetize that. But people want that in their community, and so that's something that falls on government to do with the collective resources that the community has given us. Along with that, one of the things that I've always taken pride in, and I don't promise this can eternally be true, but it has been so far, is that in my proposed budgets, I have yet to propose a tax increase. That's because I think that, again, I think maybe everybody in this room would agree that they probably they probably feel like they give enough to the government right now, and of course, their taxes go to support so many different layers of government too. But I'm always looking for creative ways to leverage what the taxpayers give us. For example, in Boulder City, Nevada, which is home of the Hoover Dam, I don't know if any of you have been there. Boulder City was actually the city that the federal government built to house the workers for the Hoover Dam. And a lot of interesting stories there, including some Howard Hughes connections. Was it you that worked for Hughes? Yeah. But at any rate, some really interesting stories there for another time, because there's not time. But through a really interesting chain of events, Boulder City bought the El Dorado Valley. Now, if you've been to Boulder City, you've come from Las Vegas probably. You might have come from Arizona, but you probably came from Las Vegas. And the Vegas Valley has the city of Las Vegas, Henderson, North Las Vegas. You drive through what's called Railroad Pass into the El Dorado Valley, and then there's Boulder City and the Hoover Dam. But as you drive into the El Dorado Valley, if you look to the right, you see a vast desert. And the desert, as far as you can see to the south there, and 7 miles beyond the horizon, is owned by the city of Boulder City. And that's a super interesting story that you don't have time for today, but remind me to tell you sometime, because it really is fascinating. But because we owned all that, and another element, two more elements. One is 362 days of sunshine in Boulder City. And another one is because of the Hoover Dam, which Boulder City is a partner in, and the original main partner, now it's the Bureau of Reclamation, but it was the City of Los Angeles. And that's still where most of that power goes. And so that El Dorado Valley is also transmission central into Southern California. So with all of that, we were able to partner with private industry and develop solar farms on the property that we owned. And so we were able to lease those to the companies and do several plant scale solar projects out there delivering power into Southern California, which helped meet, you're probably aware that California is requiring such a percentage of green energy by a certain day and everything. They even then, while I was there, California even required that a certain percentage come from in California. And interestingly, El Dorado Valley, outside of Boulder City, Nevada, which is in Nevada, is, because of all those partnerships, it's considered in California the same way a military post is American soil. And so we were actually able to sell power into California, even under the inclusion of what they wanted done in California. So the bottom line, and I'm sorry, it's hard not to go on about that, but the bottom line is for the next 40 years, that's going to cover 28% of the general fund, those lease payments. So you got to kind of always look at sometimes there's some magic right under your nose you just got to recognize. You got to get outside the box. You got to think about creative ways to leverage the resources that the public is giving.
Thanks. And of course, innovation and all that plays into it. But thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I know during our discussion, you mentioned that you have watched a lot of videos and you've been kind of keeping up with council meetings. Based on what you've learned about our city, what you've watched from the meetings, what do you feel it is that the residents care about the most in our city? And what is your plan to help address that one issue that you think is most important to them?
I think this is probably going to illustrate a larger point. I think that, of course, traffic is a big concern, and I know I'm reminded of when I moved to Wyoming. We moved there from Las Vegas, and I'm in Cheyenne, which is state capital, but it's also home of the largest outdoor rodeo in the world, Cheyenne Frontier Days, which brings 500,000 people to town for the Frontier Days celebration. But I remember one of my board president telling me how crazy traffic was going to get in Cheyenne during Frontier Days. And so Frontier Days came, and yeah, there were more people there, but it didn't seem like bad traffic. And I went and told him, said that to him, and he said, well, I guess compared to any given Friday night in Las Vegas. And so it is a matter of perspective. I know there are some that have moved here from places where the traffic is worse. I know there are some who've been here long enough to see the traffic increase. That's going to be and I know you guys are taking creative approaches to that. I know I'm not revealing anything new to you, and I assure these folks that I can see that the city's been busy on that. But because of the way the city's built with kind of just a few major arterials and then so many neighborhoods, that will continue to be a challenge. And I'm sure our traffic engineers are going to earn their money going forward. But it illustrates a larger point, and that is, it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, the citizens all want to be safe and secure, right? That's the foundational thing. And so they need things like, you know, police and fire. They need traffic to flow well, but they also want kind of some of those higher level quality of life things addressed as well. And they don't want that to end. You know what I mean? They're not going to be content if 50 years from now, you know, if it's a good 50 years and then it goes bad. And so back again to what I've said to several of you about economic development, residential growth, the pressures for residential growth are bringing it right now. I don't think you guys have to go to any effort to get out and find builders and find, you know what I mean, find somebody that wants to move here. Here's one right here, by the way, if you're looking. So kind of market forces are just going to take care of that. But if you don't keep your eye on the ball, if you don't prioritize, I used the Stephen Covey to-do list example with a couple of you earlier today, and that is when you get up and you make your to-do list in the morning, you've got to put the things that your boss expects of you today and the things that your spouse expects of you today and so on and so forth. He said, put the first 2 bullets on your to-do list as things you want to accomplish. Do those first. But if you don't, you'll never get to them. And so that's I know I'm going a little far afield from your question, but you know, there's going to be tugging and pulling at us all kinds of things we need to do, like, you know, like keeping traffic flowing and making sure that people are safe and even keeping our parks maintained. But if we are not looking at the long view and making sure that we've got a couple things like economic development at the top of that list that we're focusing on, whether it's the focus of people in public comment or not, then we're down the road. We or our successors down the road are going to pay the price for that. So we just need to be proactive and make sure not only that we're setting ourselves up for success. When I say ourselves, I'm probably talking about our successors.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, I think we're out of time.
First, I just want to echo all the comments before thanking you for applying and going through the process. We really appreciate it. So my question is about growth management. I know we've mentioned that a couple times so far already, but you know, Palm Coast is experiencing some rapid growth right now. The council, as well as all the residents, are concerned about changing of the character of the city, right, through all those things that are happening in terms of growth. Can you walk us through specifically how best you think it is to manage growth so that it's balanced and it protects the existing residents, you know, in terms of their quality of life, infrastructure, and things along that line?
Thank you. I thought this was all going to be easy questions. So I don't know if this iteration of my resume, I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if this, you know, when you get 30 years down the road, it's hard to fit it all onto a page. I don't know if this iteration of my resume has the Smart Growth Awards that I won from the governor's office in Colorado and from the American Planning Association, but I've like a lot of things we'll talk about, I've been here. I've actually been in slow growth and even limited growth communities, but I've been in rapid growth communities. In fact, I cut my teeth in the rapidly growing northern Front Range in Colorado, where, you know, you go to, you know, Denver was the example they used there, where you'd go to Denver and it's 20 cities. You drive back and forth between them and you don't know which one you're in. You know, if you're in the city of Denver, if you're in one of those others. And they were looking at northern Colorado, so the northern Front Range is, if you're familiar at all with the area, Greeley, Fort Collins, Loveland, up north of Denver, and several other communities in there. And there was a lot of fear that northern Colorado was just going to become that. Nobody was going to know what, you know, Loveland was going to lose its character because it was just going to be part of that and so forth. So we went through a lot of things with intergovernmental agreements kind of stuff to come to an agreement how we would, going forward as that growth came, how we would maintain that, our individual character. And so, that's a big part of it, and I know you guys are well into that sort of planning, but a big part of it is knowing who you want to be when you grow up, for lack of a better way to put it, and so that all the decisions you're making are leading you in that direction, rather than haphazardly making decisions and just seeing where you end up. So that's a big part of it. You are a little bit handcuffed because of some of the things that your legislature has done for you. It's kind of handcuffed you in terms of what you can do for growth. And in fact, just to call it like it is, because you'll learn that I do that, growing is healthy. There's a certain growth rate when you surpass it, but it starts to get a little unhealthy and hard to keep up with. And you're there. I mean, you're growing at what city planners would argue is too fast of a rate to really manage it the way you should. Having said that, it is what it is, right? You got to play the hand you're dealt. And between what's going on in the rest of the country and just the natural, like how great this place is, and some favors that the legislature hasn't done for you, you got to play that hand. So you just got to be forward thinking. You just got to look even further down the road because your vehicle's moving faster. So you just got to be looking further down the road and make sure that you're preparing infrastructure, and make sure that you know where you want your urban growth to be. You guys have designated, again, not rocket scientist, and I know you already know this because I see you doing it. But designating where your urban growth areas are going to be, and how you're going to address that infrastructure. Infrastructure is a big deal. Of course, it's a big deal in residential growth. It's also a big deal in economic development. The more prepared you are for a company that you're trying to bring here, the easier it is for them to do that, the better off you are. And a good example I'd use of that is Port Huron, Michigan. Most cities have an industrial park, right? And most, I'd say most, more than don't, already have utilities, the lots designated and the water and the sewer and the street in there, so they just have to come and build their building. I mean, if you're really, that's really kind of the standard for being on the ball there. Port Huron, which is, Michigan is a big manufacturing place. Port Huron actually built, model factories, as it were, kind of like the model home in your community. So they would have built 3 different factory plans. And so when they brought a company to town, they'd say, which one do you want? And then whichever one that was, they'd build its twin, you know what I mean? That company would get it, and they'd build another one of those, so they'd still have the 3. And so I've never seen anybody else, that got that aggressive with it. But when you're trying to get somebody to say yes, the easier you make it for them to say yes, the easier you have that development. So as we're looking at infrastructure, as we're having to look at infrastructure for residential growth, we need to make sure we've got an eye on the ball for putting in infrastructure. And I don't think we can do, I don't think we can actually do the buildings like that. I'm not recommending that. I'm just using that as a kind of an example at this end of the spectrum. But we need to make sure that we're, that we're designating those areas, that we're building out utilities, that when a company comes, when we're talking to the company about coming here, it's not, yeah, you could have this parcel, but you're going to have to run the water line through my house. You got to be looking at that. And that's again, that's going to take more footwork than residential. That's going to take more incentivizing than residential is right now. Have I come close to answering your question? Okay.
Thank you, sir. Back to you, Councilman Gambaro. No, I'm good.
Well, so, we've had a lot of turnover, in city managers, within our community here in the city, and certainly we're about to experience some turnover here in the council here in the next year. pretty significant turnover. And so does that give you any pause or reservation as you consider this opportunity?
You know about, do you guys know about the city manager's 3 envelopes? I'm going to answer this with a, city manager reports to work. There's a memo on his desk. I'm going to use the word him because me. Memo on his desk that said, from the outgoing city manager, that says, great city, wonderful staff, you're going to like these people. Just a word of advice, in your top desk drawer, there are 3 envelopes. If you run into trouble, just open one of the envelopes and do what it says. And so the manager thinks, well, that's kind of odd, and he puts it aside and he doesn't think about it again. But as some time passes along, things start to get a little rocky, and with some issues that are coming up that are kind of thorny, and he's feeling the heat a little bit, and so he remembers the envelopes, and he goes to his desk drawer, he pulls out the first one, opens it, says, blame it on the old manager. And so he does, and what do you know? Things smooth right out. So, well, that was pretty good. So he, time's going on, and things are still good, but after a while, the council starts getting a little unhappy with the way the house is being, things are being run in-house, and again, he's feeling the heat, and so he goes to his drawer, pulls out the second envelope, opens it, reads it, says reorganize. So he completely reorganizes, and the council, the staff is happier, the council thinks it's brilliant, he's back in good graces, everything's golden. And again, you know where this story's going, more time passes, and there's some issues in the community's getting restless, and that's making the council uncomfortable, and he's feeling the heat again, and so he doesn't want to use up that last envelope, but the temperature's just hot enough, he feels like he's got to do it. So he goes, gets the third envelope, opens it up, and it says, make 3 envelopes. So, am I aware? Yes. Is that a part of the profession? Absolutely. Have you churned through enough recently that it gives me pause, to use your words? I'm absolutely aware of that, and I asked several of you some questions earlier to try to get at whether we were ready to have a longer-term relationship, or whether I was, signing up for a brief encounter, and I don't want to come for a brief encounter. I want to come in and dig in, and you really need some consistency and some longevity from your manager in order to accomplish the things that you want to do. And so I would just say this, and that is, whether it's me or whoever it is, choose the right person. You know what I mean? Don't ever really knowingly choose the wrong person. I say this to HR. This goes for every position in any employer that's listening to me. Never knowingly hire the wrong person just because you're the best person in the pool. It's not the right person, try again. And I know that's happened here as well. But do your best to hire the right person, and then realize that you're not going to like everything they do. Right? And so if you're ready to pull, if you're ready to pop smoke the first time the manager does something a different way than you would have done it, then that's not going to be a good environment, and it's going to hurt your success long term. But if you can, as a group, decide that we're going to hire who we think is best, we're going to support that person. If he does something that we don't like, but it's not illegal, not immoral, let's remember the last 100 things he did that we did like, and have a little patience. I mean, I think it's time, frankly, you guys are going to learn. I just tell you what I think. And I do understand who's in charge. You know what I mean? So I'll take your direction as long as it's legal and moral. But you'll always have the benefit of what I think. And what I think is that, and again, regardless of who it is, whether it's me or somebody else, you need to have, for businesses to want to come locate here for the sake of your reputation statewide, you need to be prepared to settle into a I'll be if offered the job, I'll be accepting it on the basis that I think that's what we're signing up for.
Well, thank you, sir. This council has made some very tough calls in investing in the future of our city. Certainly, the selection of our next city manager is part of that long-term stability that we're looking for. So appreciate the feedback.
Again, I don't mean to lecture you. I certainly, apologize if I look like I got on a soapbox, but I'm just kind of calling like I see it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Councilman
just
Sullivan.
to, kind of a general question, and you can kind of pick and choose which parts of this you want to answer, but and you're not here yet, so I don't want to ask about everything, what you do to solve our specific problems until you get here and really get a chance to look into things and make good decisions. But in your experience, in various positions you've had in the past, you must have had to deal with a number of these issues. For instance, our whole state, local control versus state control of the ability of the cities and counties within the state to make decisions. And a lot of that comes back to where the money is going to be. And our state right now has created an environment where we're worried that some of our ability to make decisions is being taken away. That's one thing. In our specific city, we don't do public-private undertakings. And when you're getting back to your Boulder, Colorado thing, we don't have a Boulder, Colorado land grant getting ready to be made here. But one of the ways we think, one of the possible ways to do things is to do what's called public-private enterprises, where together you can do something that you couldn't do just as a city. But we're not allowed to do that right now in our city, but maybe you've had some experience with that in the past. And then in general, without going into a lot of details, our utilities are the biggest, that's where we're going to be spending our resources over the next 5 years, the majority of them. So any experience you've had with those kinds of situations where there are major upgrades, that kind of thing, and some of the problems are good things that might have happened. You can pick out any one of those you want to take, but those are all things that interest me, not so much of what we're going to do here, but what's happened in the past with yourself.
So just so I understand the ground rules, I can pick any of those I want, but not none of them. I have to choose at least one of those to...
Well, you got to take at least one.
Okay. Let me ask you a quick question. Public-private partnerships, you say are not allowed in the city. Is that a statutory or a charter issue?
Charter.
Okay.
Charter issue.
Okay.
By the way, there's a charter review going on right now.
Bingo.
Let me just chime in. They are allowed. We're just limited by a 3-year period and a cap on how much we're allowed to enter into an agreement with.
Well, the first thing is to, if you can, and the charter, it's not easy to change a charter, and it shouldn't be, right? But there is a process for doing that. So that would certainly be something that I would hope the Charter Commission would be taking a look at. I don't know if they already are. If they aren't, and I get the job, I'll encourage that. And that would be kind of the same answer, whether it was charter or statutory. It'd just be which body, which group you're looking to try to take the handcuffs off a little bit. But I think that you need to, in that process, and I'm assuming that your charter would need to be recommended by the commission and then put onto the ballot and passed and so forth. So if you want to, for example, have a little more freedom with the PPP, the public-private partnerships, you need to let the commission and the citizens know what success looks like there. And there may be, some fears of what that might look like, but again, good public education would be important there. I know that you're probably limited in, I'm guessing, and I apologize for not knowing this answer again. I got 30 days to come up. I'm just kidding. I'm guessing that you're limited on how you can spend money in elections. But I'm imagining that you are allowed to do educational things. So you'd want to do that, and you'd want to really get in that lane and do that educational piece. And another important thing, whether it's legislative, and I spent 15 years as executive director of Municipal League, and so, seeking things legislatively was my full-time focus almost there. Um, you need to be careful what you ask for, right? So in other words, we need to vet that out really well here and see what we would like the charter to say, and make sure it has the right guardrails in there so that the public knows that it's not a, you know, you're not going to see chaos over it, but here's what that might look like, and then again, some good public campaign, what that would look like. I mentioned earlier to one of you guys that it's, you know, it's one thing to inform the public, it's another thing for them to get the information. And you know, just because we put it on our website or in the paper or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean people looked at the website or read the paper. And so a good part of the city's communications plan, and I don't think I talked about this in any of my written or video answers, but an important part of the city's communication plan is to give people information that's in the size that they can consume it, you know, that they can digest it, and do it in the way and in the places that they're looking for information, and to do it on a schedule that's predictable to them, that they know when to be watching for that information. So if you're doing a city newsletter, but 3 people are reading it, for example, probably look for, you know, maybe we want to get more heavy on social media, and there's ways, especially on social media, there's ways to tell if you're effectively, you know, getting into enough numbers and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, it's not rocket science. If you want to do more with public-private partnerships, the answer is that the Charter Commission and the community to enable you to do that. But getting there is a process, and won't do you any good to get won't do you any good to get you to have the Charter Commission recommend it if these guys won't approve it when it gets to the ballot. And they shouldn't approve it, frankly, unless you've shown them how you're going to use it and it's reasonable.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Mr. Fraser, what do you think would be a good win for this council and for our staff over the next year, and how would you achieve that?
That's, you know, the obvious answer is hire me.
Touche.
I think that, and again, this isn't the kind of thing I would normally say here. It's the kind of thing I would normally say, you know, offline with you. But again, given some of the trauma you've been through, I think a good win would just to have a nice, steady year where the public correctly perceives that you're working together as a team, and that things are going to get better. It sounds overly simple, but there's no greater gift that the public can give you than their confidence. And so to me, that would be, not that you lack it now, but again, because of some recent past trauma, I think to demonstrate, you need to demonstrate your ability to work together and to get that trust. So I think the big win would be an increase in public trust.
And how would you plan on accomplishing that?
I would lecture you. No, I'm just. So, Billy Joel, I heard Billy Joel interviewed one time, and the interviewer said, "How have you achieved such success over so many years, you know, with so many different audiences?" And he thought about it, and he said, "You know, I'm competent." And he said, "That seems to go a long way." And I remembered that because, I mean, the way you prove your, you know, the way I prove myself to you, and the way I prove myself to the public, the way the city proves themselves to the public is competence. I mean, it's really kind of that simple. That people feel like they're getting what they paid for, that you're representing them correctly, that that I and the staff are carrying out your directives efficiently and properly. It goes a long way. So just I would endeavor to be highly competent and demand the same of those that I'm working with. And the ask that would come to you would be just to make sure that as you as a group assign things to us, the more clear your direction is, the better, the easier it is for us to carry it out.
Thanks,
That's
Mr.
kind of
Fraser.
like, that's kind of like everything I ever needed to learn. I learned in kindergarten, but it really is important.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your candor, for your time, and for your commitment and willingness to come all the way here from across the country and interview with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I
Thank
should
you,
have
ma'am.
led with thank you, by the way. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Miller?
Yes, thank you. So in terms of residents, the residents expect us to be most efficient with every tax dollar that we collect. And, you know, we have pressures from rising costs, growth, things like that. What specific practices, management practices, and financial strategies would you implement to ensure that all of our projects, but mostly our capital projects, those are the high ticket projects, are efficiently produced on budget, you know, so that our taxpayers don't have to bear more costs in their daily lives?
Thank you. I think it starts at the beginning, right? You need to, if you want to have a well-executed game plan, you've got to have a well-formulated plan. And so it starts at the beginning when you want to make sure you got the right, and you know, there's statutory ways that they try to ensure that we do that. But again, it's all about the team, having the right people on the team, and that includes not only our in-house folks that that do civil engineering and design and so forth, but also whoever we hire, make sure we're hiring the right people, get the right places. And then it's just a matter of, and again, I hate to oversimplify it, but it's just really a matter of competent project management. And from the manager's perspective, because of course I'm not going to manage those. Typically, I'm not going to manage any of those projects myself, right? I'll not only require accountability, but I'll be up to my elbows in knowing what's going on and having those reports come to me. We're going to make sure you're already, I'm sure, in compliance with all things in terms of your finances, make sure your audits are clean, but we're going to make sure we have the right controls and oversight. Like I said, if you just make the right, if you don't have your head in the sand when you're making the plan, and you execute it properly. Sorry, I wish I had a lot of bigger words.
That's it. All right. Mr. Fraser, thank you for your time. And the meet and greet will be from 5 to 6:30 this evening. And I'm sure Ashley will get you squared away on that. What time do we have Mr. McLaughlin scheduled?
3:15, but we could probably move it up if need be.
Okay. Is he in the building?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions of us, Mr. Fraser?
I appreciate that, Mayor. You know, the questions that I came prepared with, I think I had a chance to ask this morning. I guess let me start by saying again, thanks for having me here. Very kind of you to thank me for coming, but by all means, thanks for inviting me. I don't have to tell you how wonderful your community is. That's why I'm here. So thank you for the time that you're investing in this. I know this is a bit of a long, day for you as well. So thanks for doing that. And the question I would have, and you don't need to answer this now if you want to shoot me a text or an email or something. The first question I'm going to have for you when I report to work is, what do you think the highest priority item is in the city right now? And again, depending on what the chair wants to do, you can respond to that now, or if you just want to think on that, so that again, in my first 30-day sprint, I'm going to be one of the most important things for me to do is to understand what your priorities are. So I wouldn't mind each taking that. I hate to give you an assignment because that assures me of not getting the job.
Ooh.
Now that I think about it.
Does anyone want to answer that?
I'll answer it.
Go ahead, go
I
right
can
ahead.
tell you
Mr.
mine.
I just can't resist. Well, safety, security are number one, but what does that mean? Well, that means that when you turn the water on, the water's going to come through your faucet, and you flush the toilet, it's going to work, you're going to have electricity, not going to have potholes in the roads and all that. So I think it starts with safety and security, but then that relates to just about everything else that the government needs to provide effectively and efficiently as possible. So I think that's actually a fairly easy question to answer, but there's a lot of specifics and the devil's in the details on making sure that happens.
You had something else, Mary?
Yeah, for me, it's protecting our quality of life by putting Palm Coast first.
Councilman Miller?
Yes, sir. Infrastructure, and I think that just goes along with what Councilman Sullivan said. We have invested heavily in our water infrastructure through the rates and the bonds that we're taking out, but in terms of the execution of that capital improvement, that's going to be a key portion of the next 5 to 10 years, and ensuring all of that is quality for our residents. So that's top of mind. And then the next piece of that on my list is roads. We've addressed funding the water, and the next thing is funding the roads and trying to find a way to do that so that we're ahead of this growth curve that we're on right now.
Councilman Gambaro, do you have any?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just to echo what Councilman Miller touched on, infrastructure, and why infrastructure is so important. Well, in Charlie Gambaro's estimation is that infrastructure, whether it's water, wastewater, the roads, leads to jobs. It gives us the capacity, not just from a residential perspective, but from a commercial perspective. Good jobs in a good company allows for good health care. Okay? And when you have a combination of all three of those, you have the potential of increasing our residents' ability to either attain or afford housing. And when you look at all the issues that our residents are concerned with, as we engage in the community, that's it right there. Being able to have, like the Vice Mayor said, quality of life. But in my estimation, it starts with infrastructure, and that's why this council has been so focused on it and made such a big investment on it, because we know that the second and third and fourth order effects of it leads to all of the things I just laid out. So it's a tremendous challenge, but one we can certainly tackle as a team, and with the right leader at the helm, as the CEO of our city, we can move forward and make that happen.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I could go on and on, Mr. Fraser, but I won't get into the details. But for me, it's infrastructure and attracting industrial growth, because we have to offset our tax base. Because as we discussed this morning, we are a 90-10 city, meaning 90% of our revenue comes from residential housing. So we have to balance that out. We are way off balance, and so our equilibrium is not right for this city. So you will get immersed very quickly if you come on board. With that being said, Ashley, say you guys good with 250 with Mr. McLaughlin? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fraser.
If I may, Your Honor?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you again. You've got a beautiful city. I hope you'll hire me, but whether you do or don't, I wish you great success going forward.
Okay, thank you, sir. And
Thank you.
and you'll get to meet some of our residents tonight at the meet and greet. So we will adjourn until 2:50.